It's a brutal one for the San Francisco 49ers. Not only the loss on the road at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but the loss of Fred Warner, even bigger. He is out for the season. What it means for the 49ers this week, next week, and beyond on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Coach Crocky on Twitter. Thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers. Thanks for hanging with us. And welcome to the new listeners as well. I know it is not the outcome that 49ers fans wanted in Week 6, neither on the field or on the injury report. But this is where we are in 2025 with the San Francisco 49ers feeling like a doomed season, even though the 49ers right now are a 4-2 football team, and they are at the top of the division. They are a team that is in the playoff mix 6 weeks through the year, even though it doesn't feel like it. And as many of the 49ers players said post-game, sort of a gut punch, said Trent Williams. And according to Juwan Jennings, he was actually, not only was it a stomach issue, he was nauseous. He had to take medicine for his tummy because it gave him a stomach ache to think about the Fred Warner injury. So that's where the 49ers players are, and I'm sure the fans felt very similar, whether they were drinking Pepto-Bismol or something stronger on this Sunday. And with me today, of course, is Eric Crocker, who was at the game in Tampa. And so I want to get his thoughts there. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Mazda, and Mazda moving the game forward. Like our players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Mazda moving the game forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Croc, what was the atmosphere at Raymond James Stadium? Did you were the fans kind to the visiting 49ers fans? I know I saw a lot of 49ers fans that were there. I saw some photos of you with John Chapman at a pregame event as well. So I hope you had a good time, scoreboard aside. What was the vibe like in Tampa for this one?
Yeah, I actually had an amazing time here in Tampa, and obviously the final score kind of put a damper on things just a little bit, but the fans were cool. They were pretty chill. I had a few kids I was interacting with in the stands up where I was sitting at, and we were betting push-ups on certain plays. So I was like, all right, 49ers get a first down. Let's bet 5 push-ups. And I feel like every time I bet the kid, I lost. So I ended up doing about 30 push-ups or so. But it was fun. It's a nice stadium. The weather was hot. It was hot, especially on the side I was sitting on. There was no kind of shade at all. So kind of reminiscent of Levi Stadium, how there's one side that's a little more toastier than the other side. But overall, it was fine. And it's still interesting when things like injuries happen, especially one of the magnitude of Fred Warner. There's no television telling me what's going on. You kind of have to go to social media to see, but my initial reaction was this can't be good, because I was looking at the players' reaction. And immediately I saw players kind of turn their heads, walk away, guys take their helmet off, take a knee. And I believe I tweeted out, I said, was it bad? Because I'm looking at the players' reactions and it kind of doesn't look good. And there were some people saying, yeah, it was bad. And then someone in my group chat sent a picture. I said, oh, it was bad. So I knew from that point he was probably done. And I had shout out to Coach Desi. She sat up with Donald and myself and watched the game with us there at the stadium. And she's the medical expert. And she said, regardless if there's a fracture or if it's just a dislocation, he's likely going to be done for the season. And shortly after the game, that was the report that we got.
Yeah, and I didn't want to put it out there too soon and speculate. Shout out to my wife, who's a physical therapist, and she saw the replay, and she said instantly, it looks like either a broken ankle, a dislocation, or both. And it turns out that that's exactly what it was. And confirmed now that Fred Warner is going to be done for the year with a broken and dislocated ankle. a brutal blow for the San Francisco 49ers that have dealt with injury after injury so far this season. And it felt like the Nick Bosa injury would be the straw that breaks the camel's back. They were still able to win a game last week on short rest at the rival Los Angeles Rams. This week, it was not the case. And now Fred Warner injury on top of that, done for the year. And I was reminded of this, Croc, when we did our rankings in the offseason of most important players for the 49ers in 2025. Do you remember what that list was? Because the 49ers have lost the top 3 guys on that list.
Yeah, we lost the top 3, and a guy that wasn't in our top 5 was Brock Purdy. He was about 6, I believe, and you lost him as well as several others.
Yeah, I think it went Kittle, Warner, Bosa, or Bosa, Warner, Kittle, something like that. I think we might actually end up going with Kittle 1, Bosa 2, Warner 3. But in some order, those were the top 3. And then it was Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, and then Brock Purdy. So 4 of the top 6 and all of the top 3 now have been lost in some major fashion for the 49ers. 2 of them not coming back, in Nick Bosa and Fred Warner now. Hopefully get George Kittle back next week. And then we'll see on Brock Purdy, who might be as well getting close. Let's finish the conversation on Fred Warner before we move on to the rest of our reaction from this football game in week 6. The 49ers lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 30-19. Warner's so impactful, and I think about the reactions on the field, and the first thing I saw was CJ West and the way he jumped up and put his hands on his helmet. And then there was a player, I think it was Tez Johnson for the other team, who ended up scoring a touchdown later in the game. He looked distraught. And it's like, okay, when the opposing players look distraught about an injury, that's really bad. And players were taking knees. And this is before we even saw what the replay was on the TV side of things. And then you see the injury and you realize this is really bad because ankles aren't supposed to turn that way. And so Fred Warner is done for the year. I want to go to another doc. This is Dr. Chow, Pro Football Doc. He's kind of the internet NFL doctor that diagnoses things when he sees them. And he said about Fred Warner that it was so surgery for sure for a fracture dislocation. Season is over, but career and next season are okay as far as the prognosis goes, which is huge and good news for the 49ers. And in fact, it's something that Chris Godwin is currently coming back from. And Chris Godwin, a little bit older player than I think Fred Warner is, right? And Drew Allar, I think, has the same injury for Penn State as well. And Penn State just fired their head coach. So, which are, I think, unrelated. But yeah, so I obviously terrible news. But if Dr. Chow is right, it's good news as far as the prognosis that this is something you can come back from. It's not a career-threatening injury, and he should be, is done early enough this year that he should be back for next season. So that is now the hope, and you're looking ahead at 2026 for Nick Bosa and Fred Warner.
Now I have to look at the exact wording of the injury, but it reminds me an awful lot of the Dak Prescott injury a few years ago when he kind of snapped or dislocated his ankle, and he was out. He missed obviously the rest of that season, but was healthy enough to play the next year. Now some people will say that maybe Dak's athleticism kind of took a little bit of a hit, and obviously you don't want that with Fred Warner. I think with things like that, the biggest part is just the mental hurdle and getting over that aspect of it and just trusting that everything is fine with it and pushing yourself in workouts a certain way. So that's going to be the other part to it. I mean, you have the surgery, you have the recovery, you have the rehab, and then you have the mental hurdle of trusting that foot that you once saw pointing the wrong way. So prayers up to him. He's the heart and soul of the team. And I think Coach Desi, I'm not going to blame her all the way, but we were going to the stadium, and she talked about how she was wearing a Fred Warner jersey, and she told me how she got the jersey. She was so excited. And she's like, yeah, it's my lucky jersey. Got it for my birthday. And she kind of did a swap with another 49er fan because they were all sold out. So she was all pumped and amped up to wear this Fred Warner jersey. And he didn't make it through the first half of the game. She then took the jersey off because felt like it was kind of bad luck and didn't want any more players going down for the 49ers.
It can't be a lucky jersey until good luck happens while you're wearing it. So you got to wait to find out if it's lucky or not.
Yeah.
You can't proclaim it lucky too soon. Maybe tempting the football gods there. The football gods hate the 49ers. Clearly, Kyle Shanahan made some kind of deal, right? And
I've never seen anything like this. I've seen a lot of injured teams. Like I've seen, players get injured. The Detroit Lions last year, everyone knows they had like 15 defensive guys on IR. But to have this amount of guys that you count on just not out there, like the highest paid players at like every position for the 49ers right now are gone. Your quarterback, not your running back, but your quarterback, your tight end, your receiver, your defensive end, your linebacker. You finally got, a safety back, and they don't have a highly priced safety out there. But golly, I mean, they're just missing those guys and other guys who are supposed to contribute big time. I mean, just no Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings playing with broken ribs. I mean, it's just a bloodbath right now. So you may be right. I don't know what Kyle Shanahan, what deal he made with the football gods, but he didn't pay his debt or whatever he was supposed to do, because this is one of the worst things I've ever seen.
More on Fred Warner. How do you replace Fred Warner, and our thoughts and game balls from week 6 coming up next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Mizzen and Main. You haven't heard of Mizzen and Main? You know the saying, look good, feel good? Well, the problem is the most dress clothes only check one of those boxes. They look sharp but feel stiff, hot, and high maintenance. That's why there's Mizzen and Main. Mizzen and Main makes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel comfortable. They actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and they've perfected it ever since over the last decade. Shirts are stretchy, moisture wicking, wrinkle resistant, and machine washable. So no ironing, and best part, no dry cleaning. I know all the guys out there don't want to spend more time doing laundry than they already do. And it's the feel of athletic wear, but the look of professional menswear. And right now, Mizzen and Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com with promo code Locked On NFL 20. That's Mizzen, spelled Mizzen, and Main, MIAN.com. Promo code Locked On NFL 20 for 20% off. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main stores in select states. This episode is also brought to you by Mazda, and Mazda moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. And a player I want to highlight from this football game, where there wasn't a lot of highlights on the side of the San Francisco 49ers, is Eddie Money, Eddie Piñeiro, who has been darn near perfect for the 49ers, 4 for 4 on field goals in this game with a long of 54 yards. And he accounted for 13 of the 49ers' 19 points all by himself on those kicks. So with one of one extra point. So perfect 5 or 5 on all of his kicks was Eddie Piñeiro in this football game. Eddie is at least moving the ball forward for the San Francisco 49ers, and Mazda is moving things forward as well with their vehicles. And if you haven't driven a Mazda, they feel different. They drive different. They are a cut above. You got to check them out and go test drive one for yourself. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. So Fred Warner, first of all, Fred Warner is not replaceable. Whether you're going to go out and make a trade, whether you bring somebody up from the practice squad, whatever it is for the 49ers, what Fred Warner brings to the field and just how good he is across the board as an athlete, as a football player, as a communicator, as a leader, he's a player you do not replace on defense for the 49ers. And I think it was going back to Trent Williams, talking about how much of a gut punch it was. And he was talking about how it's like, you know what? And to be honest with you guys, kind of hard to get up and play with that same intensity after you see something like that, after you lose a guy like that. That's how important Fred Warner is. It's a gut punch to the entire team, even ownership. And we don't hear a lot from Jed York these days, but Jed York sent out a tweet a few hours ago, and it said, hard to gain even more respect for Fred Warner, truly an elite human being. And apparently after the game, he was in the locker room. He still broke the team down in all the pain, I'm sure that he was. And so Fred Warner, special person, special player. You're not going to replace him. And I tend to think, Croc, I don't know, roster spot wise, he's going to go on IR. So there's going to be a roster spot. Do you go shopping if you're the 49ers? Or does this actually not only pause things for the 49ers as far as being aggressive and trying to add, let alone a linebacker, but potentially one of those pass rushers that the 49ers had been reportedly looking at in recent days and making phone calls about, whether it's Trey Hendrickson or anybody else that might be available on the trade market, Croc? Do you think this pauses that for the 49ers and they might have to reevaluate and think, you know what, maybe this isn't the team to go shopping for?
I think this might be the team to not go shopping for. If I'm them, I want to see a young guy, right? You got Nick Martin, and clearly he's someone who isn't 100% ready to play or have any type of, big role on this 49er team. And as we're watching it, you're seeing Fred Warner get carted off the field. And Coach Daisy says, well, who's going to play linebacker now? And then Tatum Batoon, he made a couple tackles. I was like, well, it looks like it might be Batoon out of Florida State. So they have young guys who have gotten some live reps, but there just is no replacing Fred Warner. I believe even if you try to go shopping for a linebacker, I don't think there's any replacing Fred Warner and what he brings. So I think this is truly an opportunity for the 49ers to play some of their younger linebackers. And they had the guy that I never could remember his name, but Luke Gifford. They had him out there. I said, gosh, that's a special teamer out there right now. And I think in coverage too, we saw where he was missed. There were some key, third downs where they went empty and ran kind of a stick route, caught the ball with ease, and the linebacker was out there in space. And I'm like, man, yeah, Fred Warner, he's more accustomed to covering out there like that. So I think you think a lot about just flying around, making tackles, but man, in coverage, I think they missed him right away. And again, I don't think there's anyone you can just trade for. So you got to hope that these young guys grow up really fast. But I do not believe that should stop you from potentially making a move at edge rusher if you think that'll help you, because what's going to help a young linebacker crew? A terrific pass rush.
Absolutely. You got to be good up front, and it all works together on the defensive side of the ball. As pointed out in the chat, by the way, Fred only missed one game this whole time until now. He missed one game in 2021, week 13 against the Rams. The only game that Fred Warner has missed in his entire career until week 7. He will be his second game that he misses. And he played through a broken ankle last year. But this one's not something he's going to be able to play through, which is brutal for the 49ers. Friendly fire, too. A player rolling up on his leg is just like one of those freak accidents, and has nothing to do with a player holding out or a player, not being in good condition. It's just a freak thing that happened on the football field. And it keeps happening to the San Francisco 49ers. It's Tatum Bethune's job. Tatum Bethune is the Mike for the 49ers. I don't see them making any moves there. I don't know if there's even a player available that you would bring in to expect to come in and try to play for this football team. I think Tatum Bethune going forward as a thumper and run defender is good. It's going to be really hard to find a guy, and teams already have trouble finding guys who can cover as linebackers. So that's something you're probably not going to replace easily from Fred Warner. You're probably going to be able to see Nick Martin, the 49ers third-round pick, active for the first time in his rookie season, because he's been inactive every single game so far. But from what I remember,
there was a player a long time ago. You have to go all the way back to 2017, but he was inactive for an extended kind of period of time, about 5 or 6 weeks or so. And then he made his kind of debut. And he kind of played, and then he finally got a start, and he made a big play. Do you remember what player this is? 2017.
2017.
Not Kendrick Bourne, because I think Kendrick Bourne kind of started off inactive for like the first 10 games or so. So yeah. Not Kendrick Bourne. But there was a defensive player.
Defensive
rookie,
player. So
a guy that was drafted 3rd round, like Nick Martin, but high in the 3rd round.
3rd round, 2017, not CJ Beathard, not Joe Williams. He never was active ever in his NFL career. George Kittle was active earlier than that, from the start. It was not the 1st rounder in Solomon Thomas or Reuben Foster.
So there's one player. You're going before, you're going after, but there's one player right there. I bet everybody's kind of screaming in their cars right now.
Yet I'm trying to think of 3rd round. Oh, Ahkello Witherspoon.
Ahkello Witherspoon. He started out inactive. And I believe he was active, then had like a concussion, left the game against the Colts, I believe. My memory may be a little foggy, but eventually he came in and he started. I think they traded away Rashard Robinson, traded him away. And Ahkello Witherspoon was a starter and actually played very well down the stretch. So there is hope for Nick Martin, a guy who has started inactive. You just have to kind of find your way, find your path. And right now it's under unfortunate circumstances, but the NFL is all about opportunities and using an opportunity to create your next opportunity. And that may be starter next year or whatever it is, or just having a role. So that's what this is about right now for Nick Martin.
So here's the thing is a lot of people have talked about Nick Martin and then D Winters and putting them together on the field. I don't think either player, they were competing at the will linebacker spot. Like I'm trying to think of the preseason after Bethune, what other player even took reps at Mike and even in a preseason game has called a play and communicated a play with the green dot on their helmet.
Yeah.
So who's
I don't know, but
Jalen Graham? Jalen Graham's on the practice squad. Has he played a little Mike? I feel like he has over the course of his career. And so is it possible that Graham gets activated and then leapfrogs Nick Martin onto the active roster because he has experience at Mike and Nick Martin doesn't?
I think sometimes it's all about just what the player is ready for. You go back to not 2017, I believe 2018 now, when the 49ers drafted Fred Warner, and 49ers had a Mike linebacker, right? Like they had a guy that was flying around and looked like he was going to be pretty awesome if he could stay healthy, Reuben Foster. But Reuben Foster didn't have that green dot. It was Fred Warner. So from the jump, from the start, he was the green dot guy. So I don't know if they have a guy who they're comfortable with just giving that role to, but D Winters has played next to Fred Warner. He's been in the system for a couple of years now. He may be the most suited to just say, you know what, I've seen everything that Fred Warner has done. I've seen how he's done it. I've seen how he communicates. I got to step up now. I got to mature a little bit on the field and take on this great responsibility. Or they may go with a veteran, somebody that's kind of been around, like Lou Gifford.
Yeah, Curtis Robinson as well. And I'm going to have to go back and see who's actually taken snaps at Mike, because that's probably the guy who's going to be active and backing up Tatum Bethune at middle linebacker. I wouldn't expect a move there. Possibly still can make a move at defensive end. Could the 49ers in the next few weeks, if they're able to compete still as they are currently constructed as a roster, will probably inform John Lynch into what the 49ers are going to do going forward. Let's talk more about this game. Game balls, if there are any, to give out in a loss. 30-19 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 6. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your new crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 parts, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. And man, it's an epidemic of bad service out there. Service is almost non-existent in a lot of industries, even in the service industry. And so it's really cool to see a company like Supply House that really is dedicated to support. Their trade master perks like priority shipping and dedicated support lines Make the whole process smoother, and you can join the free TradeMaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5. That's like Supply House NFL and 5 for 5% off your order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Use code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. I kind of predicted that the 49ers would have a tough time here, and I thought maybe even a field goal line was not quite enough. The 49ers did compete in this game, but they fell short. And with the NFL season now through almost all the way through 6 weeks, still got a couple of Monday nighters, and then on to week 7. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. And right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Weekly lines, player props, build your own parlays, in-game live betting. It makes watching football even more exciting. You got playoff baseball as well, college football, NHL and NBA starting up. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
Peacock, I know we haven't really gotten into the game yet. We talked a lot about Fred Warner and that injury and who potentially may replace him. But there's something I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, and that's Christian McCaffrey. And I tweeted out something about Christian McCaffrey just doesn't quite have the same juice. And, oh, man, my comments were flooded with people coming to his defense as to why that's not the case, right? And a lot of the conversation is about the offensive line, which we know is not good. O-line play has nothing to do with loss of juice. And essentially what I'm seeing from him is something that we've kind of touched on. There's something a little off here. There's two things that could potentially be true, right? Just maybe he's not 100% recovered from the injuries or 100% himself because of the Achilles stuff going on, the calf stuff going on. Those are things that could potentially hinder his explosiveness a little bit. But seeing if someone is explosive the production doesn't have to be there for it. Like, he doesn't have to average 5 yards a carry for me to say, oh man, see, no, he's explosive. It's just what it looks like. We know Isaac Guerrero can be a very explosive player, right? Like, we know that. If he's averaging 3 yards a carry, he's still an explosive player. He just may not be very good. Mm-hmm. I think with Christian McCaffrey, I think he's still a good player. And he's terrific. And there are a lot of people, he's carrying the 49ers right now. He's doing a hell of a job. He has a lot of touches. I never said he wasn't good. I never said that he can't be productive. But there's a little something missing with some of the runs that are not hitting. And it's not just because of – it's not like his fault. O-line, we see it. There's not a whole lot of lanes. But the NFL, the room and margin for error is like so small. Where before, there's just certain things that he did that were just very freakish. It could be a jump cut and then a burst out of there, right? And it would be him kind of creating some of the runs that maybe weren't quite there to be had, but he was just so good, so different. He had these runs where we're like, man, how did he do that? We're not asking how do you do anything right now. It's just not there. And it's clear watching him in space, not quite the same burst. And I do attribute it to some of the injuries. And some of it could be age as well. But again, that doesn't have anything to do with him catching a pass in space. He understands zones. He had a nice little spin move today. I thought that was really cool on one of the runs. But there's just a lack of juice that he currently doesn't have, that he has had in previous seasons. And I'm not sure if he'll get it back. I'm not sure if this is just a new version of him. I definitely know that does not help, that the O-line does not open up run lanes very well for him. But if anyone is telling me, no, this is the same CMC that we've seen since he became a 49er, kind of fooling yourself a little bit.
I think it's pretty clear that he's lost at least a half a step from what we saw in 2023 and earlier from Christian McCaffrey. He can still get out of a break. He's still a really good route runner. He's still a smart runner, long speed. You know, he was never a 4-3 guy or anything and a blazer as far as long speed, but we haven't seen any long runs. And it's not like Brian Robinson has more juice than even a step slower Christian McCaffrey either. So that's why it's like, man, you must really not like what you saw from Isaac Guerrero recently. And what about the rookie and Jordan James? They just need a little bit of something else because it's just 17 carries for 3.3 yards every single week for Christian McCaffrey in the 49ers run game. They got to try something else. And Christian McCaffrey's so much more valuable to the team as a pass catcher than a runner right now. And it's not all on Christian McCaffrey because, yeah, you're right. It both are true. The offensive line is not playing well. The interior of the line was bad in this one. Dominic Pooney, one of his worst games. And I get it's Via Vea, and it's a tough draw for him. But Connor Colby beat bad a couple of times. The interior has not been good for the 49ers. And when you put those two things together, what you get is a really inefficient run game. And the advanced metrics bear those out. The 49ers, when they hand the ball off to Christian McCaffrey this season, are getting negative expected points added, negative EPA. And when they throw it to him, it's a positive EPA. So it's not that Christian McCaffrey shouldn't be on the football field. It's that they need to do something else in the run game because the run game is just not working. And it's every week, it's the same result. It's 17 carries for 3.3 yards, right? And that's just what the run game is right now. And I think there's multiple reasons why. And so there's certainly not going to be, well, hey, congrats on getting your first rushing touchdown of the season in 6 weeks. Guess what? That's still not going to get you a game ball today, Croc.
Yeah. And this isn't something new to just this season. So I don't know how well they, blocked up, running the ball last season, but we were saying something similar about CMC last year, where it's like, he's not running the ball quite as well as we were used to seeing. And we talked about, Elijah Mitchell. Remember at one point we were saying, man, I think Elijah Mitchell is kind of a better just runner right now than CMC. There were times that we said that it was last year, like maybe the year before that. So this isn't like a new thing, but I think it's more glaring now because you don't see the big runs that we're used to seeing him, or just the chunky yardage. Just I have visions of him, just running down the sideline, and not quite seeing that from CMC right now. Very difficult when you just have zero lanes and he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. But the lack of, 12-yard run, 13-yard run, you're just not seeing any of it. I think it's that he's lost a little bit of that step, and that has made a big difference.
So running game has not been great for the 49ers, and essentially everything's stacked against Mac Jones in this game. And we asked the question, it was my biggest question all this week leading up to the game was, can Mac Jones win a shootout against Baker Mayfield in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Clearly the answer to that was no, and it was not Mac Jones' best game. But I almost want to give a game ball to Mac Jones because of how the 49ers battled in this game. And there wasn't a lot of quit in the 49ers, even after the Fred Warner injury, even though they were clearly undermanned. But the pressure that Mac Jones was under, he did make a couple of mistakes. But it was really just too much to ask for Mac Jones to go out there and win this game and win a shootout with everything he's dealing with. No run game and getting pressured as much as he did and getting sacked 6 times for 51 yards in this game. And part of it is because he couldn't move well, but he threw 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but he chucked it again almost 40 times. He was 27 of 39 for 347 passing yards. So he did a lot in this game as well, being under duress. So I think when things are going well, it's really easy to look good. When things are not going well, how does the player play? How does the player respond? He made a couple of mistakes, but overall, I thought he looked like the same guy he had the last few weeks, to be honest with you.
Yeah, at one point, outside of the early interception, which I don't know if there was miscommunication with him and Kendrick Bourne, what it looked like to me was Kendrick Bourne potentially had an option route. He ran a whip route. Was he supposed to run an out route? I did see, now again, I didn't see this during the game. I'm up in the bleachers, but I heard that like maybe Mac Jones had ripped Kendrick Bourne for whatever decision he made. So I don't know. For whatever reason, they weren't on the same page. Mm-hmm. He had pressure in the face. He threw the ball, was anticipating something that clearly was not there. And it really should have been a pick six, but the defender just could not stay on his feet, which was like super odd, super odd. But that was bad. And then from there, I felt like he maybe settled down, got it together, and he was playing at a high level. And I'm looking at, my brother, I'm talking to fans, I'm like, man, Mac Jones, he actually looks good right now. He's making throws. He's in Kendrick Bourne. He's having another 100-yard game. Got to give a game ball to him. But there were a lot of good things that he was doing until he threw that interception. Now, I never saw the instant replay from like a TV copy, but it looked like potentially he was trying to make a whole shot throw, and the underneath defender picked it off. But maybe you can explain exactly what happened better than me, because I didn't see a good shot of the replay.
Oh, you talking about the second interception?
The second one, yes.
Yeah, I think that was pre-snap. Mac Jones thought he was going to get something because he passed up two looks that were open. One was Marquez Valdez-Scantling over the middle of the field, and then there was the quick out from Tonjes at the sticks that was open immediately, and he passed those up for the throw he made because I think he thought that it was supposed to be cover 3, and they disguised it, and it was actually cover 2, and there was a defender there ready for it. And so that was on Mac, I think. Plus under a pressure a little bit, that was definitely on him. He got and he didn't throw it to the first open reads because I think he thought pre-snap he was getting something that he didn't end up getting. That's what I think.
Gotcha.
But
makes sense. But if we're gonna get on Brock Purdy about decision making in clutch situations, then I'm gonna hold Mac Jones to the same standard. Not making as much money, but right now you got a lot riding on this. And he did a terrific job with no run game, and a lot of guys who haven't been on the roster just figuring out a way to keep the 49ers in the game. I appreciated that part. I flew all the way to Florida, and I just wanted to see a competitive game. And for 90% of the game, it was very competitive with the 49ers having a chance, having an opportunity. But like you said, did too much to ask of Mac. And I think it's getting to that point where you're having him throw the ball 40-plus times a game. That's too much for him. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, it's just what the 49ers are right now. Like, they have no run game. So what do you want Kyle Shanahan to do? Watching the game and watching the two offensive coordinators, just the differences in what they were doing, it felt like the drop-back passing game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was a little better and clearer defined quick reads. And really good job of just some high-low stuff where, hey, this guy's going to run a nice little stick route. Then you have the dig behind it. All right, linebacker, you're going to help on this stick or the dig. You jump the stick, boom, we're going to throw the dig right behind you. It was a lot of those type of things that I felt like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did a really good job of just executing. And maybe those things are there in Kyle's offense. And Brock did have some throws throughout the game where he was hitting those, but he didn't in the clutch. And that's when you have to be playing your best football. He wasn't, and Baker Mayfield was.
Two things that impressed me about both quarterbacks. I did like that after the miscommunication and near pick 6, that Mac Jones went right back to KB, and they hit on like a 50-yard play, and Kendrick Bourne showing up big again. And it's strange that we're sitting here in week 6 and we're talking about the 49ers passing game with it's Mac Jones to Kendrick Bourne and Jake Tonjes, right? Yeah. You didn't say the words Jake Tonjes or Kendrick Bourne one single time between the beginning of the offseason and whenever the day was that they signed, the day before they signed Kendrick Bourne, essentially, right? And so just a strange situation that the 49ers see themselves in right now. We're going to go a little bit longer today. We had a lot to talk about with the Fred Warner stuff here, and I do have some game balls to give out, and I'm going to give a game ball because it's deserved to Baker Mayfield on the other side. He was without his first 3 wide receivers too, and he was still making throws and throwing touchdown passes to Tez Johnson and Cam Johnson and guys that have never caught touchdown passes before. So Baker playing at a high level right now, and I love seeing the bounce back from Mac after the pick, hitting Kendrick Bourne and making a big play the next time down to go back and score some points. And after you give up, a quick 7 to a team, you come back and you get some points of your own. So that showed me a lot. Baker Mayfield, the run. What did the near sack that turned into a first down scramble for Baker Mayfield look like from the stands, Croc? Because not only that, but he followed that up with the touchdown pass, the dagger on the very next play. I mean, Baker's just playing at a high level.
He's a scrappy guy, and he's not going to go down without a fight, whether it's with his legs or with his arm. And the 49ers got to see all sides of that in this game. I mean, a terrific throw down the field. There were a couple times where he had guys open, but just to throw it out there and the fingertip catch by the receiver, that was impressive as well. Sterling Shepard out there making plays. I'm like, gosh, this guy's still in the NFL, but he looked good. And that's one of the things when you have a quarterback who's playing very well, doesn't matter who is out there. So it was Tez Johnson, it's Sterling Shepard, it's Cade Otton, and no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, no Egbuka at some point in this game. Tough for Baker Mayfield to continue to get things going, but he did a really good job of it. So much so that at the end of the game, it was very faint and it didn't last very long, but there was some MVP chants for Baker Mayfield.
Did you hear Tez Johnson after the game?
I did hear him say he thought that the MVP chants were for him.
He scored a touchdown. He's like, man, MVP chants? I haven't done a lot this year. And then I think it was Sterling Shepard or somebody else had to pull him aside and be like, yeah, they're chanting for Baker, dude, not you.
Yeah, he wasn't reading the room very well.
That's how these athletes are wired, man. They're like, yeah, that's right. MVP, let's go.
Especially receivers.
Yeah, exactly. Game ball for Eddie Pinheiro, 5 for 5, including 4 for 4 field goal, 1 for 1 extra point. Congrats, Michael Williams, on his first sack of his career. One of the few times Baker Mayfield was pressured in this game. Well, another thing stood out to me with Baker. There was a pressure from CJ West. And by the way, so all 3 rookies, this was the most, and I don't know what the exact snap totals were. This is the most I've seen CJ West and Alfred Collins on the field together. They were on the field all at the same time with Michael Williams. All 3 rookies playing a lot, and we might see a lot of that going forward, especially with the banged up nature of the rest of the 49ers defensive line with Yetur Gross-Matos and obviously Bosa out for the year. So CJ West's pressure, like right up the middle, a gap to the right side of the center from the offense's perspective, and Baker Mayfield is just locked in. He sees pressure right here. He's just so smooth, side steps, easy, boom, completion 20 yards down the field. Almost like there was no pressure at all, because there wasn't pressure from anywhere else, but it was so easy for him to just move off that spot, stay in the pocket. It was just like teach tape for a quarterback, with a little bit of pressure in your face. Didn't bother him. He sidestepped it, made the throw. And also there was no other pressure for anywhere else to really make Baker Mayfield feel like he was getting collapsed in on making a big throw. So I don't know. Yeah, Baker's playing good football right now.
One guy who maybe isn't playing as good football, and the fans are definitely letting me hear about it, but it's Siegel. And these are the things that you kind of deal with when you have this many rookies out there. We talked about this potentially being an issue at some point. You're going to have some ups and downs in their play, and you have to hope that, you can kind of just maneuver, manage through it, or still win games while these guys take their lumps. I would assume that Siegel would be better for it, but you're just going to have to go through this if you want this many rookies playing this amount of snaps in very meaningful games. You'll deal with stuff like this, and the hope is that they don't make the same mistake twice. They learn from it, get better from it, but there's going to be a lot of lessons learned for a lot of these younger guys.
Were you surprised that Pinnock got benched because Mustafa was back, but that it wasn't Mustafa with the start? It was actually Jair Brown that started with Siegel. So everybody had it wrong, because somehow a player comes back and Brown went from the third big nickel safety to starting with Siegel. How does that happen? That was super strange. Saw a lot of Mustafa, in the deeper coverage as kind of the number 3 safety after it was Siegel and Jair Brown with the start, and then Pinnock got completely benched. Pinnock had played every single snap of the season before this week.
Yeah, those are some of those roster politic things. Like, let's say if Pinnock isn't on the team after this season, we're going to hear him on the podcast talk about this situation, how he should have been out there, and they had some other guys that they maybe invested more in, or they've been around, and now all of a sudden I'm the odd man out in that situation. I bet my money there's going to be a podcast where he's talking about that.
And if they were going to bench Pinnock, they should have traded him to the Ravens for Oweh. who came in and got a sack on like his second play for the Chargers after he got traded for his safety earlier on this week. We talked about it here on Locked On 49ers. So one last note that we got to talk about. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us. We're going a little bit long on this episode, but okay, there's a lot to get into today. And been asked a lot in the chat here about the Juwan Jennings thing. And I don't know if you heard about this, Croc, with Juwan Jennings and Kyle Shanahan having a heated conversation. And then apparently it spilled into the locker room and that they had to be separated and that they had to keep Jennings away from Shanahan. And I saw that Jennings was asked about this and he said, I don't know, you're going to have to ask him about it. And then Jennings said that he was playing with 5 broken ribs. So, I mean, this just goes to show you what guys are dealing with that are on the field. So you think that guys that are playing are healthy, those guys aren't even healthy. Multiple injuries for Mac Jones. Juwan Jennings out here playing with 5 broken ribs. And then Trent Williams was asked about the comments because they talked one of the reporters had talked to Juwan Jennings before Trent Williams, and then asked Trent Williams about what Juwan Jennings said. And then Trent Williams said, quote, "We're all going through something. It's football. Not everybody's going through broken ribs and ankle sprains, but we're all going through something. I mean, Mac just had to get a shot in his ribs. So Mac's got ribs on top of the other couple of injuries that he's dealing with. So like this team is, and then Eddie Pinheiro gets his foot stepped on. Did you see that? Eddie Pinheiro.
I saw him limping.
Got his foot stepped on after a kick by one of his own offensive linemen. So, I mean, it's just insane what's going on with the 49ers right now. But apparently Jennings and Shanahan not too happy with each other about something. And I don't know exactly what is going on there, but obviously there was the holdout for Jennings. He's not getting a lot of the football, which means he's probably seeing some dollar signs shrinking as he approaches free agency.
That would be my frustration if I were him. You know, at the end of the day, this is a business for these players, and they are a business themselves. He wanted more money. He wanted a contract where he would get more security. He didn't get it. Now he's playing. He's banged up, broken ribs. Got a slight, bump in pay, but not what he was anticipating. And now he'll head into free agency. Not going to be able to demand nearly as much money as he would have if he were available coming off of last season. So tough situation for Juwan Jennings for sure.
All right, we'll probably get some more clarification on a lot of those injuries and so much more to get into about the San Francisco 49ers, what moves are potentially going to be made for this team after 6 weeks of the NFL season. Thanks to all the everydayers and all the new listeners alike to hang out with us on this post-game episode. And, of course, you can find us everywhere you listen to your podcast. Make sure you subscribe up on YouTube, all the audio pods, and Croc and I will be back with you tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.